The biggest myth about family is that a ring means loyalty. My wife proved that wrong on the day my mother needed her most, and she did it without blinking. Before we go any further, subscribe to Revenge Handler. This channel exists for every father and grandfather who gave their best years to this family and got betrayal in return. If that hits close to home, you are exactly where you need to be. Hit subscribe right now, because what I am about to tell you, you need to hear it all the way through. My name is Harold. I am 64 years old. I am a father. I built everything I have from nothing. This is my story. Get comfortable, because the people in this story had every single chance to do the right thing. They chose wrong. Every time. Drop a comment below. Make sure you are subscribed. You are going to love it here. And if you think you already know where this is going, you don't. Not even close. My mother called on a Thursday. She was 82 years old, and she had fallen getting out of the bath. She did not break anything, but she was scared. She was alone. She called me at work. I called home immediately. I told my wife, Linda, that my mother needed someone to go over there, to sit with her, to check the house, maybe stay the night. That is all I asked. Linda looked at me the way you look at someone who has just inconvenienced you. She said, and I will never forget this as long as I live. She's not my mother, Harold. Figure out yourself. I stood in that kitchen. I did not raise my voice. I did not say a word. I simply looked at her, and something shifted inside me that has never shifted back. Rewind, transition. Let me take you back to where this started. I met Linda when I was 32 years old. She was sharp. She was funny. She had a way of making you feel chosen. My mother liked her at first, said she had good energy. My mother was rarely wrong about people, but love makes you generous in ways that are not always wise. We married within the year. I worked construction for the first decade. Early mornings, late nights, hands that never fully healed. Linda stayed home with our 2 kids. I was grateful. I told her so. I bought her the house she wanted, the car she wanted. I took her on holidays she still talks about to this day. My mother, even then, lived 40 minutes away, alone, widowed at 68. She asked for nothing. She was the kind of woman who apologized for calling too late in the evening. She cooked extra food on Sundays and left it on our porch because she did not want to intrude. That was my mother. And for years, Linda tolerated her. That is the only word I can use. Tolerated. There were small things I brushed off. The way Linda would leave the room when my mother called. The eye roll she thought I did not see. The way she referred to my mother's house as that place. I told myself it was just personality. I told myself people are different. I told myself it was not serious. And then came that Thursday. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from right now? And stay with me, because this story is only getting started. And that was just the beginning. If you are just joining, you need to go back and watch from the start, because what I am about to tell you only makes sense if you know what came before. I did not confront Linda that night. I went to my mother myself. I drove those 40 minutes in silence. I let myself into her house with the spare key I have always kept. She was sitting in the armchair by the window, wrapped in a blanket, television on low. She looked up when I walked in, and her face did something that broke me quietly. She smiled, not because she was happy, because she was relieved someone had come. I made her tea. I checked the bathroom. I fixed the bath mat that had slipped, the one that had caused the fall in the first place. We sat together until almost midnight. She never once asked where Linda was. She knew better than to ask, and that silence told me more than any argument ever could. I drove home thinking it was an isolated moment. People say things they do not mean. Marriages go through cold patches. I gave Linda the benefit of something she had not earned. That is what 31 years of habit does to a man. It makes you explain away what you should be writing down. 3 weeks later, My mother called again. Her heating had stopped working. It was January. She was wearing her coat inside the house. I was 2 hours away on a job site, no way to leave. I called Linda. I asked her, calmly, clearly, to drive over and wait with my mother until the repair company arrived. 2 hours, maybe 3. Linda said she had plans. I asked what plans. She said, Harold, I am not her carer. I married you, not her. I hung up the phone. I called my daughter instead. She went. Of course she went. She is 26 years old, and she dropped everything without a single complaint. When I got home that evening, I did not say anything to Linda. I sat at the kitchen table, and I started paying attention in a way I had never paid attention before. If this is hitting close to home, give this video a like right now. You know exactly what I mean. That is when things began to clarify. I started noticing the calendar. Linda's plans, the ones that always seemed to appear the moment my mother needed something, were not what I had assumed. She was not busy. She was available. She simply had decided, somewhere along the way, quietly, without telling me, that my mother did not deserve her time. I found this out through my daughter. She told me, carefully, like she was handing me something fragile, that Linda had said things at a family dinner I had not been at. Linda had told my daughter that my mother was clingy, that she called too much, that she needed to learn to cope on her own. My mother, 82 years old, who apologized for calling too late in the evening, who left food on our porch so she would not intrude. That woman, according to my wife of 31 years, needed to learn to cope on her own. I sat with that information for 4 days. I did not sleep properly. I replayed every family occasion I could remember, every Christmas, every birthday, every Sunday lunch, and I began to see it clearly, the way you see something once your eyes finally adjust to the dark. Linda had never included my mother, not once, not truly. She had tolerated her presence the way you tolerate a neighbor's noise, with a tight smile and a private resentment. And I had been too busy working, too busy providing, too busy being grateful that things seemed fine on the surface. I had missed it. For years, I had missed it. Then came the phone call that changed everything. My mother's doctor called me directly. He said she had come in for a routine appointment, and that she had mentioned quietly that she had been feeling very alone. He said she had lost weight. He said she had mentioned not always eating properly, because sometimes she did not see the point of cooking for one. I pulled over on the side of the road. I sat in that car for a long time, and I thought about the woman I had married, and I thought about the woman who raised me, and I made a decision. I had spent 31 years keeping the peace. That was finished now. Still with me? Good, because this is where everything changes. I want you to understand something about the man I am. I do not react fast. I never have. The men I grew up around, my father, my uncles, they were not loud men. They did not throw things. They did not make scenes. They watched. They waited. They remembered. And when the time came, they moved once. Cleanly. Completely. That is the only way I know how to do this. I went home that evening, and I looked at Linda across the dinner table. She was talking about something, a program she had watched, a friend she had spoken to. I nodded. I said the right things. But I was somewhere else entirely. I was thinking about my mother, sitting alone in a cold house in January. I was thinking about a doctor calling me because she had lost weight. I was thinking about 31 years, and I was making a list, not on paper, in my head, the kind of list that does not go away. The first thing I did was call my solicitor, not to do anything yet, just to understand my position. I am 64 years old. I have a pension. I have the house, which I bought before we married and which I maintained entirely from my own income. I needed to know what was mine and what was shared. My solicitor, a man I have known for 20 years, listened to what I told him. He did not say much. He said, Harold, coming on Monday, bring what documents you have. I said I would. The second thing I did was speak to my daughter, not to alarm her, not to make her choose sides. I simply told her the truth. I told her that her grandmother had been struggling alone, for longer than any of us had realized. I told her that was going to change. I told her I needed her help setting something up. She did not ask many questions. She said, "Dad, whatever you need, just tell me." That is my daughter, 26 years old. More backbone than people 3 times her age. Pattern interrupt. While all of this was happening, Linda was completely unaware. She went about her days. She made her plans. She went to her lunches and her appointments and her evenings with friends. She had no idea that the man sitting across from her at dinner every night had already begun to move. That is the thing about quiet people. We do not announce it. We just start. The third thing I did was visit my mother. I went on a Saturday morning, unannounced. I brought groceries. Proper groceries. Enough for 2 weeks. I sat with her at the kitchen table, and I told her, gently, carefully, that things were going to be different now. She looked at me with those eyes she has always had. Sharp, tired, knowing. She said, "Harold, don't do anything on my account." I said, "Mom, I am doing this on mine." She reached across the table and put her hand over mine. She did not say anything else. She did not need to. Over the next 3 weeks, I made arrangements. I researched assisted living options near my daughter, not because my mother could not cope, but because she should not have to cope alone. I spoke to a care coordinator who came and assessed the house. I arranged a weekly check-in from a local service. I set up a direct line, so my mother could reach my daughter in 30 seconds flat. Every single one of these calls, I made from my car, on my lunch break, after work, before dawn some mornings. Linda knew nothing. And then, on a Tuesday evening in February, Linda made the mistake that ended 31 years of marriage in a single sentence. She was on the phone to her sister. I was in the hallway. She did not hear me come in. I heard her say, "His mother is just attention-seeking. She's been doing it for years. He'll get over it." I stood in that hallway. I did not move. I let her finish the call. I waited until she hung up, and then I walked into the room, and I said very quietly, very clearly, "I heard that, Linda." The color left her face, and for the first time in 31 years, she had nothing to say. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I simply told her that I had spoken to a solicitor, that I had been making arrangements, and that when I was ready, I would be in touch through him. EW are almost at the end. Subscribe if you have not yet, because what happens next is something I have never told anyone. She had spent 31 years underestimating the quiet man across the table. She was about to find out exactly what that man had built, and exactly what he was prepared to walk away from. You stayed. Good. Because this right here is why patience is a weapon. The morning I moved out, I did not make a scene. I had arranged everything over the previous 2 weeks. A modest flat, 15 minutes for my daughter, 25 minutes for my mother. I packed what was mine, my tools, my father's watch, the photograph from my wedding to a woman I thought I knew. I left that last one on the kitchen table, face down. Linda was at her sister's that weekend. I had chosen the timing deliberately. No confrontation, no performance, just a note, 3 sentences long, and the number of my solicitor. The divorce proceedings began in March. Linda's first response, through her own solicitor, was that she was entitled to the house. My solicitor reminded her of one fact she had apparently forgotten. The house was purchased in my name 14 months before we married. It had been maintained, extended, and renovated entirely from my earnings across 3 decades. She was entitled to a share of what we had built together. She was not entitled to what I had built before her. The look on her face, when that was explained to her in a formal letter, was described to me by my daughter, who heard about it secondhand. She said Linda had gone very quiet. I imagined she had. Here is what Linda had not counted on. 31 years of marriage to a man who worked construction, a man who kept records of everything, every renovation, every extension, every improvement made to that house. Documented, dated, filed. I am a quiet man, but I am not a careless one. The settlement took 4 months. Linda received what she was legally entitled to, fairly, properly, without any games from my side. I did not try to take more than was mine. I did not need to, because what mattered most was never the house. 2 months after I moved into the flat, my daughter found a place, a small assisted living apartment, 10 minutes from her front door, ground floor, a little garden, a communal lounge she could take or leave. My mother moved in on a Thursday. I drove her there myself. I carried her boxes. I put up her photographs. I assembled the small shelf unit she had kept in her bedroom for 40 years. We had tea together in her new kitchen. She looked around the room, at the garden through the window, at her things arranged the way she liked them, and she said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. She said, I didn't want to be a bother. I said, Mom, you were never the bother. She nodded once, slowly, and we sat in that quiet kitchen, just the two of us, and drank our tea. Linda, I am told, still talks about the divorce as something that happened to her, as something unfair, as something she did not see coming. And I understand that, because when you spend 31 years looking at a quiet man across the dinner table and mistaking his silence for weakness, you stop seeing him clearly. You stop seeing what he notices, what he carries, what he is capable of when the people he loves are finally given a reason to matter more than the peace he has been keeping. My mother is 83 now. She calls my daughter twice a week. She has a neighbor she takes her morning tea with. She has put on the weight she lost. She laughs more than I have heard her laugh in years. Last Sunday, I drove over with groceries and we sat in her little garden. The sun was out. She had her good cardigan on. She said, You know what I miss most, Harold? Just having someone nearby. I did not say anything. I just sat with her. That was enough. I did not destroy her. I simply stopped pretending that keeping the peace was the same thing as being at peace. If this story moved you, subscribe to Revenge Handler. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And drop a comment below, because your story matters too. I will see you in the next one.